And welcome back, everyone, to the LPL Spring Grand Finals. EDG find themselves up 2-1 against LGD in our best of 5. My name is Julian Pastry Time Card. Joining with me is Christopher Papa Smithy Smith. And EDG, after a shaky game 1 and honestly a shaky game 2, find themselves with match point.
I think there's a couple of shaky things about EDG strategically, but man, are they clutch when it comes up to late game team fights. Just crazy fights that you can go back, disseminate, rewind, watch in halftime speed. Hopefully Monte Cristo gets on that at a later date, just because those are some crazy fights, and Clear Love especially. Those engages coming through with the Glacial Prison was what won them the game, because Koro, he was always in the right spot for the massive Gnar wombos.
And that's why we talk about Koro's Gnar and so much combo there. Sejuani's been great. It's actually won every single game in the series so far, so be interested to see if it's taken away, as there's quite a large EDG sign.
The cup is still
that
shining.
That cup looks so sick.
It really, really does. And speaking of sick, I cannot see Sejuani getting through to LGD because it must be first pick worthy. And the crazy thing to take away, Pastry Time, is that they're not respecting Godvy's champion pool at all. He's got his run-of-the-mill. It's been 2 Orianna games and Kassadin, and he's been on the losing exchange over the 3.
And it's been Koro that picks up MVP. You might have wanted to pick Clear Love there, but I think he got it last game, and honestly, Koro did a lot of the setup, a lot of the hard work to get Clear Love into good spots for those ultimates, and together, that duo ran all over LGD in those team fights.
They were just really one-minded on their engages. Communication a bit wonky around objectives, especially in game 1. But when it comes to one-mindedness, it's just really committing in these fights. It transcends language. The aggression comes through, and even Imp getting out-aggressed by his younger brother, you have to say. They're deft, being so assertive. First on Corki with the Valkyrie. This time, no reposition, just flashes over curves to get onto people on the Sivir, but it was effective.
It was effective indeed, and that looked like a dream EDG comp from my perspective. Pulled it off, although just barely, I have to say, with Godvy especially back on his Orianna. LGD have shown they have the tools to win in this matchup, but EDG, these teams are very evenly matched in skill. We might give the edge to LGD strategically, but when it comes to clutch and big team fight moments, EDG right now seem to have their number.
Well, it's definitely something to iron up. If EDG do take this victory when they're looking to move towards international competitions as maybe one of the top teams out there, the likes of TSM and then the champions coming through from Korea might find exploitable weaknesses in those rotational plays. Again, being 0-4 and Dragons down, having ward disadvantages is potential things where if those team fights go slightly askew, they can be taken advantage of. But so far in this series, EDG have been clutch when they needed to be. The picks and bans is the big question. Do we just see wildcard picks come out from LGD? They're sticking with Akon. That's the one factor. No sighting of Flame this series.
No, I can't imagine we're going to see Flame when you're down a game, especially. Not a slight to Flame, but again, LGD have just started with Akon in every game. They seem to like him more as at least their starting top laner. And in grand finals like this, Flame, as good as a player as he might be and is becoming again, there's not the same experience, not the same synergy with the team in such a crucial time.
And what champions come through the drop? LGD, they're on the blue side this time, so they'll get one of the prize first picks. If Sejuani's up, we have to expect that to be locked in. Orianna and Kassadin are the big question marks, whether Godvy's going to return to those champions after Pawn showed that again. You go for this unlimited mana Kassadin build with the likes of the Athenes, you can get so much work done, even against a comp, which at least with the first 2 picks, looked like it was going to deal with Kassadin really well.
And you can see their coaches right behind Akon, so that means it's time to draft here. LGD versus EDG for game 4 now as EDG find themselves up in the best of 5, 2-1, and LGD straight in another direction with their first ban. Jace is taken off the table.
Jace as a first ban. What does that mean? Again, maybe it's another thing to empower the Kassadin pick. That was what we saw the Jace picked into, was the Kassadin. But it does definitely strike me as a wildcard ban, that first ban.
A Kalista ban again by EDG. Something we've expected throughout the series was Imp not to get it because Def has a couple plays, but just not the same mastery of the champion as Imp does. Another ban to Pawn there as the LeBlanc goes in, and EDG at this point feel very rhythmic with their bans. Hecarim banned out once again.
I wonder if Urgot is the champion that's going to fall through the picks and bans. Been consistently banned against Deft all night. Now on the blue side, maybe Imp looks at that as a possible first pick. It is a flex pick, because although we don't see it a lot in the LPL, very much the potential to go mid or AD carry with that Urgot.
Yeah, Gnar banned away from Koro this time, getting the respect I think that pick honestly deserves. And EDG do, unsurprisingly, last ban away the Kassadin.
So Sejuani's available. It's been 100% win rate for Sejuani tonight. 3-0 between 2 games for Clear Love and 1 game for LGD.
Wow.
First pick Maokai.
I mean, I understand Maokai, it's a great champion for Koro. It's a strong champion in general, but not taking Sejuani there seems risky.
I mean, there are definitely Nunu comps that could be run that deal with Sejuani, and Nunu is available. So there is a tier 1 jungler, at least by LPL standards, available to LGD, whatever's locked in. Urgot, though, is the big pick that's available. And although it can be exploitable, Deft has shown a lot of proficiency on this champion in clear love. Why change it when it's working?
Yes, Sejuani's looked great. Undefeated so far in the series, once in the hands of LGD and twice now in EDG's hands. And Urgot, you talked about it, maybe getting away from the draft. That is the pick here for Deft. And the thing I like about this is that EDG constantly lane swap Deft with the Urgot, and LGD have already been dodging the lanes.
And that's kind of the strange thing about EDG's play with Urgot, is that we've seen them take Urgot into a 2v2 lane against what should be on paper a very favorable matchup, but just go for the lane swap instead because they understand the one weakness of Urgot is levels 1 and 2. It's especially depending on your support. If you have a support cannon, maybe you have enough lane presence, but there is always the risk that Urgot loses an all-in trade, gets chunked out, has to use all his mana to maybe prune lanes, and then really struggles. So instead, EDG will swap out of that 2v2, look to pick up a tier, maybe even towards a Manamune, then swap in when Urgot does do well, which is, of course, towards level 4 onwards when the laning phase gets excellent for Urgot. So given that it's already been, what, 3 games, 3 lane swaps, which probably shouldn't be surprised if the lane swaps continue. But Rumble being locked in, although Koro does play it, would be a surprise.
It would. I mean, decent matchup against Maokai, I believe, but Siva Nunu to catch up on LGD, and there's the Rumble and the Nautilus for EDG.
Yeah, Siva Nunu. So speed comp coming through. A lot of mid-game power between Nunu, Siva, and Maokai. Not necessarily the ideal Blood Boil target in Siva coming through for the Nunu. So maybe the Azir is the muted option in the mid lane. It'll make a lot of sense. So much synergy between the Blood Boil and Azir in the mid lane. Also a very safe mid laner. Godv has played 2 Cho'Gath games and has 2 victories on that champion. It's not quite Azir, but it's even a decent Blood Boil target because, of course, the Vorpal Squike's pretty confident, but that's the big question. Does he go for something different or just go with the tried and true Orianna? Because although he got picked off in those fights, his actual laning and his advantages that he's able to create with this Orianna have been impressive all playoffs long.
Well, that's what he wants. He's going to go to Orianna, but Thresh in there as well for LGD to round up their draft. My only worry is damage, honestly, on the LGD side, because they just kind of have issues, to be fair. With Siva's okay, which he gets in melee range especially, but Orianna doesn't necessarily enable that. EDG as well might also be lacking, but Rumble does decent damage, and whatever mid laner picks here for Pawn, you have to think it's going to do decent, if not high damage.
I can definitely agree with you on that regard. It's burst damage coming through from the Orianna, but does have good consistent damage, and Siva, there are games when she does a lot of damage against an Urgot and just a tanky lineup. It might be difficult. Pawn loves the Fizz, patch 5.7. The abilities were turned around, specifically his on-hit effects with the W to make AP Fizz a little bit more attractive. It looks like a counter-pick matchup in that Orianna traditionally has done very well against Fizz, but in what can be a super tough laning matchup, he's basically countered himself.
And I have to say, EDG showing so much confidence here with this Fizz pick from Pawn. He has had quite possibly one of the hardest carry performances I've ever seen on pre-5.7 AP Fizz. So Pawn can do it on the champion, but it is bold, to say the least.
I mean, there's 2 positioning-based champions, specifically the Orianna. Suddenly now, they have the Fizz ultimate and the hyperkinetic position reverser from Urgot, and they're all going to be training towards that Orianna. So when the first CC comes in from Clearlove, if it registers, it's going to be tough times for Orianna in the mid.
As we move through the rest of our matchups as well, Impact on the Siva Deft. Going to take the Urgot, which he's had a lot of success on recently. Was banned up until this point in the series, and Hook City dead back down in the bottom lane once more as Thresh for PYL and Mako with Nautilus.
Yeah, a lot of lane pressure from EDG, but maybe towards the level 3 or 4 rather than the level 1. So EDG this time definitely screaming out for the lane swap, and maybe LGD will suss that out and try and force 2v2 lanes.
Maybe. I think it's savage stuff here, but curious to see what exactly happens with the Yoga as we are going to get ourselves straight into game number 4. And welcome back onto the Rift as we are here for EDG's match point against LGD here. It's been a best of 5, 2-1 so far as we move into game 4, and EDG find themselves with the advantage. There is so much on the line. The triple crown for Pawn with 2 domestic titles and a world championship. Clearlove's 22nd championship as well. And of course, a win for Deft, who hasn't had one in quite a while.
Yeah, whoever wins this, they will have one member who has won both OGN champions, the LPL, and the World Finals, as both Pawn and, of course, Imp were there back in just a few months ago. at the World Championships in Seoul. Now LGD invading aggressively. You have to think they're the ones that more want the 2v2 matchup. Sivir herself does pretty well against Urgot levels 1 and 2.
Yeah, you can see Pawn actually also invading for some vision. Does have his trinket. Wonder where he wants to put it here. But he's actually pretty deep in the enemy jungle and hasn't used a ward yet. So feels confident, puts it down finally to get maximum vision of the jungle pathing. And LGD again, people even checking the brush there with his hook, but LGD, no, there's no one on this side from EDG.
EDG have more information than LGD because they were able to place that red ward very early into the laning phase. They know exactly where LGD is set up. They have their own aggressive wards themselves. We're waiting to see which side these laners tend towards, but at least right now, Urgot and Nautilus are towards the bottom lane.
Pawn is actually going for the 4 potion start again. We've seen him do this, I think, actually in our last game, but seems to love his Crystal and Flask and often likes the extra potion with it as well.
Melee versus Orianna matchup. Already done it with the Cassidy. Much the same story in this matchup as the Fizz. You're going to take a lot of trade damage in the early levels, take a lot of autos, and get punished. As EDG were looking for a sneaky red buff steal. It's spotted out, but Orianna probably has to enter lane to avoid missing any experience.
Yeah, I mean, Godby can't face check that many members, especially with Pawn in the area. So we will have a swap here. LGD do dodge that 2v2, although I think we were mentioning it's EDG that wanted to dodge it.
It's just kind of a misnomer that Urgot is a really strong laning champion at level 1. He's not really. He's a strong laning champion, but he needs to get uninterrupted in his level 2 to 3 to be able to start getting in a position where he has his skill rotations and go for those untradeable, like those unwinnable trades for an enemy AD carry when you hit that lock on and the Acid Hunters are just outside of trade range, especially for a 500 rage champion like Sivir. So if he can get to tier, if he can get to Manamune and then go into the 2v2, he's the anti-carry that we know and love from late game.
Yeah, and depth. He's always loved to do this on his Urgot. Loves the Crystal and Flask as well, which is another little adaptation I like. As Koro got himself quite low in the jungle, but managed to solo away the Wolf Camp for himself.
But unfortunately, he tried to leash the blue buff and got it very low, but it reset, hard reset, after too many leashes being attempted by Koro. So it's going to be a little bit slower, the jungle follow, but it's already a Rumble who's not really noted in that area.
No, going to help Clearlove there. Get the Grump for himself as well. Wants to make sure to not die, but should be okay on that front as well as POAL just soaking experience right now, letting Imp freeze the lane as hard as he can.
One of the reasons why LGD might be looking for this lane swap is that the isolated mid lane matchup is very good for Orianna. For the majority of the laning phase, people might disagree on whether Fizz has an option to get back into this lane. With the cheaper itemization, with the Chalice at 900 gold, I feel like it gets more and more difficult for Fizz in this lane. He never really has kill pressure on the Orianna. Godby loves to take the Ignite for lane control, so I guess slightly more kill pressure than if he had Barrier, for example. But still, it's a super tough laning matchup for Pawn, and only in a team fight, if he can register the fish onto him, is it really when the matchup starts to tip towards.
Yeah, Clearlove down the bottom though, looking for level 1 PYL depth in there as well as Mako's even joined in, but smart rotations from LGD moved them down into 3v3 right now as EDG going to do a little bit of proxying and try and fast push a turret.
You just keep Akon away from experience. Only level 2 now. PYL level 1 himself. No incentive to rush back to lane, and every minion that he loses compared to Koro, who has a lower item ceiling, is getting abilities.
TBQ will go in as the hook lands. Mako, though, will get hooked as well as Akon. Get some damage onto Clearlove. And Sejuani a little too low for this adventure. Def's also out of mana at this point, but no one else coming. It's a pure 3v3 now. No teleports being pulled yet. POEL with a good double play, but they will go back in. Mako forced to flash, but Clearlove gets first blood there. TBQ locked up as well. Teleport here for Koro as Akon slays Clearlove, but Koro kind of a little late there and doesn't really do anything as he comes in.
Yeah, Koro loses a lot from rotating late. I believe he knew that Orianna is going to be the first person to get there, and it prompts a flash.
Yeah, good movement though from EDG. Get themselves to safety despite the cooldowns they have to use. Pawn's going to join in as well, but EDG only lose one person, but those cooldowns might cost them in these lanes.
The teleport is a big hole though, because up the top lane, Rumble was getting basically free farm against the Sivir. I was going to comment on the fact that obviously very level intensive, not very item intensive. So the fact that he was moving closer and closer to level 6 meant that Rumble could opt into those dragon fights, level 6, fight against Nunu. And of course, whenever you have the Nunu, you're looking for that neutral control, specifically the dragon. So Rumble getting all that experience was actually a huge big thing for EDG to be winning in the early rotations compared to the denial that was happening to Akon. All of that undone after the failed teleport bottom.
You can see Pawn prep the wave nicely, although now is a bit of trouble. No mana here for Pawn. Good juke of the hook, though. Will get flayed by PWL. Godby, the Ignite coming through. Might be enough on to Pawn. The Ignite will tick him down. Is he going to die? Just lives with that last sticker potion. Acorn even tries to snipe him with a sapling.
Only had a flask charge because the health return was going to be much slower and again much less. Just survives and almost dies to the sapling anyway. The game of interest has been consistently won by EDG, and that's the reason they're 2-1 up.
Yeah, Pawn double Dorans now, so going to start maybe getting a tad more aggressive in that matchup. Tier done for Deft. He's happy in the bottom side, still in his 2v0 at this point, actually, given that Mako's roaming out and Acorn's getting zoned away somewhat. I mean, Godvy's doing a nice job pushing it. Acorn and Mako actually having a bit of a scuffle, but Acorn, 10 CS now, not too bad. Able to pick up some key experience, though.
Yeah, the wave does start pushing towards Acorn, so there will be minions for him to pick up before too long. The interesting to see if Sejuani goes bottom and tries to punish Acorn when he finally gets to the minion wave, or whether he gets some experience under turret.
Well, Godby leaving is going to give Pawn a bit of free time, and he's actually done well keeping competitive in this lane as far as CS goes. You can see not even pushing it too hard, wants to keep it in a fairly neutral position because, sure, he wants opportunities to try and kill Godby, but more importantly, he wants to make sure he gets his farm safely. Imp kills Koro, by the way, in a tower dive, so bit surprising there, but Koro under level. Nice dive there from him to get the kill.
He just absolutely trained on him. They trade tanked the turret and was able to pick up the kill quite easily. Koro was looking good in this lane, and suddenly a failed teleport bottom, and he's getting abused up top.
Yeah, just the Ruby Crystal. They're not quite enough as far as early tank stats goes, and Pawn is rotating down to the bottom lane. EDG might be setting something up here in the bottom side of the map, but looks like the LGD duo in the bottom side will back away. That's Nunu running out. Acorn's going to get out as well. Godby pings it there away, and Pawn misses out on another roam.
It's a really smart ward onto the red buff area that spotted Fizz, even when he goes for his creative hopping engage to get to the bottom lane. So EDG, they'll keep pushing in aggressively. It's not going to be a turret trade because Deft continues to freeze up top, and Koro without the equalizer. The experience for 6 gives him the chance to go for a bit of range push because, of course, he can just use the equalizer. No resource ability to push in this way. But before he gets that experience, not many options against a Sivir hard freezing the lane.
Clearlove looking for a gank onto the red buff, but not going to find it there. Trying to go in, but taking a little too much damage as teleports will come in as well. Clearlove getting low, will get picked off there, and just too aggressive there from the Sejuani. Deft, though, does get the trade of the turret in the bottom lane.
And they use teleport as well, so definitely not ideal play from Clearlove. Basically donated a kill over, but at least they got an objective out of it.
I mean, yeah, they'll take the trade, I guess, but Clearlove a little reckless once again, trying to get aggressive wards. I can understand the style, but gotta go with your friends, man. And there was no friends there, unfortunately, especially with Koro not having that teleport. Oh, Pawn's here in the top side, though. Now Koro going to move in. Pawn, good fish onto him. Lands it somehow through the spell shield. Damage going to come in, and Pawn's going to collect the kill. And another great roam from the mid laner once more.
Yeah, Pawn was still playing AP Fizz when it was out of the meta. Comes back into the meta. Gets a little bit stronger relatively. And you can see those Fizz mechanics, very practiced and very effective.
Yeah, not rusty at all on the champion. And that's twice now that Orianna's been roamed on by Pawn for a successful kill for the EDG mid laner.
When you'd expect Orianna to have almost perfect wave control given she has the pushing options. Fizz basically takes a full damage rotation every time he tries to use his wave clear ability, the playful trickster in mid, so should be advantage Orianna in terms of wave control. Okay up in CS, but if you're getting a free roam and not losing your turret, you're happy if you're Pawn.
Pawn looking for his blue buff. It does get zoned out from the CS with Orianna now picking up her blue. Deft as well, looking to go back because his mana pool's a little bit low, and Imp actually going to return to the bottom side now. Not really a turret for him to farm safely yet, so I wonder if they'll stick in this 2v2.
May look for the freeze, although at this point it starts to push out towards the EDG turret. So we'll have a bit of a difficulty doing that. Deft's able to go back, finish the mana mune and boot, so he's already combat ready, starting to power up that mirror mana faster and faster. It looks like it'll be about the 20-21 minute mark, which is very early actually by usual standards. Sivir is competitive in CS, but in this situation where Deft has to overextend to do harassment damage, honestly, isn't that unhappy because it's in a shorter lane where it's harder to lane against Urgot. When it's in this long lane, Urgot's very gankable if he overextends for trade damage. So it's not actually that big a deal if they can keep those minions towards their own turret.
And you can see Deft actually doing a bit of roaming right now on the Urgot. It's not quite his old Twitch, but he's making it look pretty similar.
I mean, it's very flash-gated in these early levels when the swap range is still fairly short, but hey, go for something when there's not much for you to do down bottom.
Pawn wants to go for something. Another roam onto Imp as he tries to keep him down, but PYL there to babysit, and Pawn has to back off from that roam. No successful gank this time.
Pawn seeing if he can cause enough pressure down bottom, maybe you blow another summoner or even just the on the hunt, and that should transition into a very easy dragon to come through. Deft's effectively a mid laner at this point, and Golby definitely doesn't have any armor.
That's a smart swap there from EDG with Pawn actually taking almost full-time responsibility, it seems like, in the mid lane. I thought it was just to try and get dragon control, but this is really smart from Edward Gaming.
And because it's 2v2, because Mako can just poke his head in and out and use the Relic Shield to help with pushing. Although in a standard laning matchup, Orianna actually is a very strong laning matchup against mid lane Urgot because she has so much more wave clear opportunities. When it's 2v2 and Relic Shield negates any wave pushing advantage, it's just a really horrible place for an Athene's Godv to be in. And
how hard is it for POL to actually get this Fizz with a hook as well? Any sort of engage options that they might be able to get in a 1v2, it's just so hard to pin down blue buff Fizz.
And look, he's only got double drones. It's not like he's spent gold. He's sitting on 1,700 gold, but feeling confident enough in the situation with the wards that he had to be able to lane. Once those wards start to time out, then it becomes a bit more risky for him to overextend for farm in the bot.
And for the first time maybe ever in this series, Dragon not taken yet at 11.5 minutes. Both teams being very careful with their positioning, wanting to make sure they keep control of the map here. I mean, everyone's sort of scrounging for farm at this stage of the game. Koro back in the top side, now able to bully the Maokai a little bit more on the Rumble. Quite ahead in CS there as well, but Akon, he's fine in his kind of low resource situations.
EDG have had the pressure around Dragon, so if anyone was to pick it up, it'd be them. But they just haven't been able to find a spot. They've been done eye vision. They've got good deep vision themselves, but they felt it's too risky so far to opt into a Dragon fight.
You know what? Keep farming. Get Rumble to level 11. Keep powering up Clear Love. Get your Fizz through his rough early landing phase and catch up on CS. I think EDG, in fact LGD as well, just fine waiting here as TBQ going to get snared up there. Dredgeland in there as well. The E will land in as Clear Love looks for it, but Godby now might be the one in trouble, and a flash is forced. That might be enough for EDG to want to take the Dragon as PYL eats it there as the Equalizer goes through. Nailed with the fish out there, and Pawn gets another kill.
That was really lovely layering. We haven't seen Koro's Rumble for many a week since the start of the season, but found one of the best chokes to fight in with the Equalizer. They pick up the kill, and if they take the Dragon, that's a really good objective play by EDG.
I mean, people give credit to Acorn for his Rumble, and I certainly have to give him credit too, but Koro, no slouch on the champion either, as the first Dragon will in fact go to EDG. Def and Mako get caught in the shockwave, but they might just fight you. Imp gonna get aggressive on as Def turns around with cleared up. Mako finds a hook, TBQ channels his ulti, but it's not enough. Now Pawn's back as well. Acorn has flanked and got a kill onto Def, so it's 2v3 as Pawn tries to find a flash, but fails. That kill will get a triple there for Orianna, and Clear Love just has to get out and watch his team die.
And once again, Godby piles on the kills on this Orianna. Hasn't served him well the last two times, but still, he's a very impressive Orianna player, and giving an Orianna a 4-0-0 start, a needlessly large rod on top of Athene's at 13 minutes. I was actually going to mention that this team comp not the best for Orianna to fight, just because Deft will eventually get very tanky. But if you're staying ahead of your item timings, and you have kill pressure on even the Urgot, it's going to be difficult to navigate these fights for EDG.
Clear Love going to clear this away as best he can, but Godby, if he had his ulti, he would have tried for the solo kill. And now Mako has to come in and clear out what he can, but once again, this Orianna is on the rampage here, and he's been able to carry one game. Couldn't quite get it done in the last one, but he's on track for, once again, another great game.
Yeah, I misspoke. 1-1 on the Orianna, but actually two of those matches got an early double or triple kill. Was 5-1 in the previous game before he fell away in the late game due to all the ultimates from Clear Love. And they have the same insurance policy of Clear Love hitting every ultimate, which honestly is a pretty shoddy policy. Wouldn't invest in that one, but hey, it won them one game. There's no guarantee that it can't be the Equalizer again here.
I don't know. After this many years of play from Clear Love, we might have to start investing in his company. He's already got a nice result business open for Def, so we'll see what he gets done here. But Def as well, looking good in the mid side. Got his pickaxe. Pawn going to get away from the snowball with his playful trickster as well. And everyone again just powering up, but the objective advantage for once in the series is actually EDG's.
Yeah, 1-0 though. It's not a huge objective hole to talk about. Even with that objective, they're behind in gold. They have a Dragon, they have a turret, but they're behind in gold just from farming numbers. Look at the mid lane. Of course, with all this rotation of Pawn, Civ has found free CS because of the way the lanes were and the fact that Deft would have had to overextend for harass. They've never been able to do the 2v2 matchup. Godby.
EDG getting so aggressive. Koro just going to escape the hook though as well, but he is caught out. Koro has to get away. He's got his flash. He uses it as Imp, rides his way in onto the ultimate, and EDG look for a pick in the jungle, but don't find it.
Yeah, even with the Equalizer, not quite level 11, but crucially, Pawn is in the bottom lane, just pushing out, trying to equalize this big CS disadvantage that EDG have opened up. EDG have been forced into poor situations, although Deft is happy in lane against Orianna. He wants to be holding down Sivir. That's the nature of the Urgot as an anti-carry, but in this situation just hasn't been able to engineer that because of where the minion waves have been well held by LGD. Probably not a surprise that LGD have managed to hold the minion waves so well. And at EDG, this need to find the engage they're looking for. Sejuani, though.
Clearlove goes in. Ulti only onto Mako. TBQ will channel Absolute Zero, but he gets nailed by a fish. Godby, though, be able to zone them out. And PLL looking for one more. Look, TBQ getting low. Deft low, though, as well. And in a big brawl in the mid lane, nobody goes down.
And crucially, Deft had no mana, so wasn't really able to impact any of those damage trades. Used his ultimate, and then basically was completely out of mana. They back away. Not a lot of wave clear. It means this might be a turret for LGD.
I mean, Korra has his ultimate. If he has to use it, he will. But the turret's quite low here, so LGD going to try it again. But Pawn's pushed out the bottom side. Seems to be pushing towards that turret. And he's got blue buff now. Might even just look for a pick here.
Yeah, LGD have been getting every lane matchup they want. Sivir's getting free time up top. Once again, Korra missing out on minions in the lane. In mid lane, they're going to keep this turret up for now, but the moment Sivir rotates there and the lack of wave clear, which has been a constant story from EDG, is a critical point this game. Literally no wave clear among these members outside of very short range.
And good harass there by Deft onto Godby, but they take the turret, and that's 2 for 1 now as LGD get the top and mid lane turrets, but Akon might be Pawn's next victim, and if this Fizz keeps the snowball going as he's trying to do, misses the fish there, I believe, goes into Akon, no, doesn't even have the ult, he's just going to go in. Clearlove going to come in as well for the gank squad, and Akon trying to get away, but there's just too much damage.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely needed the clear love behind him to be able to pick up those kills. No ultimates between the two of them, but 2 members focusing on one was enough base damage. Only the Righteous Glory and some Doran's Rings means no magic was just being completed just yet. So they get a pick, but crucially, no objective.
Clearlove's back does get denied, though, as the Boomerang Blade comes in. Dragon back up in a minute 30. Everybody needs to go back and spend their gold if they haven't already, and you can see the back time is starting to come through. Infinity Edge there for Imp, plus a Brawler's Glove. We've got Last Whisper almost done for Deft on the Urgot. Pawn's still building up, honestly, and he's just gone for a fresh up, and Korra has to have gold to spend.
Surprising to see all the preference onto this Last Whisper. Maybe it'll still be a Brutalizer then finishing the Last Whisper, but there's no armor purchase whatsoever. Even Godfrey doesn't have the makings of a Seeker's Arm Guard or even the Zhonya's coming through. So it seems like an overly quick Last Whisper being rushed by Deft, but maybe it's just future-proofing with how the buy times are gone. Pickaxe for a bit of pressure, gets a long sword, and then maybe is priced into that Last Whisper.
Maybe as Imp does get the third outer turret, gets to safety with the Lantern as well. I tell a lie, by the way, Pawn was just waiting for his Zhonya's, which is now completed as well. And Korra got an extra blasting one, an Ant Tome, and a Null Magic Mantle for the next Dragon fight. Level 11 here as well. Teleport at the ready. EDG are primed to get their second Dragon.
And Pawn will definitely be going on Operation Kill Orianna at every option. Going to be so aggressive with that stasis, allowing him a reset of his abilities and being able to continue the fight. Death Cap, though, that's a big power jump for Ori.
That's stupidly early for Orianna to have 2 items right now. Athene's plus the Death Cap already done. We talk about Ori builds. Godvy's certainly done some interesting ones recently as well, with Luden's Echo being a prominent feature of a lot of his inventories, but this is pure damage and shield coming out from Orianna. We talk about a 2-item spike being important. Usually 22 minutes is fine for this. 4 or 5 minutes early on that power spike.
Going to start off the Dragon. If a tank goes in with the ball, they're going to be so tanky. Teleport comes through. Yeah, they're already backed away.
They're both coming through, but Koro didn't have a ward quite so close, so EDG might have to contest for this Dragon. Great poke, though, coming through for Deft, and EDG will get themselves back on the Dragon.
Love's not that tanky yet, so he can't tank the Dragon for too long. 3,000 health. Still a very healthy Dragon and a real standoff in this game 4.
Yeah, this might just be a smite off here. Pawn goes in for the burst. No, doesn't get it. TBQ takes it away. Clearlove gets hooked, and EDG have to scatter to the absolute zero, but they're still looking in. Imps uses his ulti. Pawn really wants to assassinate someone. He goes in with his on his Koro. Comes in as well. Clearlove lands the ulti. Depth charge onto Godfrey, but Pawn, that's too far forward. Clearlove gets hooked. Goes down to Imp. Shockwave goes in. Gets Deft in there. Flays him back. And that's a Dragon and 3 free kills for LGD.
Yeah, 3 massive kills. Poor target choice coming through from EDG. They were scattered. You can see multiple low health members. They really needed to choose and prioritize the closest target. Didn't do that because with their short ranges, so hard to do any sort of damage to the backline. Kill the front line first. And LGD, it's 20 minutes. Literally, Baron just spawned, and they're rushing it.
I mean, they've got a Nunu. TBQ has to be a bit careful, but not a bad idea to take it. And this is the super EDG Baron. Normally, you see this at 25 minutes after a 1 team, but LGD going to one-up them and take it at just over 20.
Literally just spawned and they take it down. They have the Nunu for the Skier. Very, very safe. Pushing the mini wave slightly at the bottom is Koro, but nothing else to show for it. And suddenly 5,000 gold behind with a fiercely mid-game team comp EDG. And they leave up the Orianna a third time, and it looks like they're going to be punished.
Yeah, we talk about mistakes costing teams these games. A bit of a bigger one there for EDG, but committed so hard to contest for that Dragon, and DBQ even stole it away, and everything else went completely wrong.
They're just building magic-resistant health, completely disregarding the damage from Deft, and it doesn't look like they're going to be punished for it. Deft will probably pick up the red buff, but isn't really an ideal red buff recipient, given that most of his damage is gated around his Acid Hunters. The builds in general are just not fully formed. The Last Whisper not going to be doing very much from the Urgot, as mentioned, and the magic resist stacking is the story from LGD.
Well, apparently when Pawn picks Fizz, this is where he ends up. Consistently behind, has some issues, but he's carried games like this before. EDG, we've talked about their team fighting in the last 2 games with the Sejuani in particular. They're going to have to do something spectacular to keep themselves in this game, because 5,000 gold up with a Baron here for LGD and a blue buff steal coming through. They just keep losing advantages in this game.
It's the Miracle Assassination onto Godvi as the first person going down in a fight, or it's going to be a lost team fight. They cannot afford for the Shockwave to rip through their 400 or lower range members, and their siege prevention is non-existent. They have no wave clear.
Yeah, I mean, Rumble ulti, and that's about it.
Doesn't do that much against Baron buff minions.
No, not at all as EDG clear out the way, but LGD already rotating top to take a 5th turret here. EDG only have 1 to themselves here, and that gold lead, about 5,000 before, jumps up to 6,500 now.
The penchant for Pawn to pick up Fizz did this on Samsung White, does it on EDG, forces themselves in these situations where they have no wave clear, and if they ever start losing, they give up a Baron in this particular example, lose a team fight. The downside of this comp is incredible, and they just have so few ways to get back into the game against all the disengage, and it's just simply they're on the hunt from Sivir.
Grab comes through onto Mako, actually. He's forced the dredge line away. Gets chunked to about 60% health, though, and again, even with a Sivir, feel confident. Good double ulti there onto Deft and Pawn. Godby insta-kills Deft's Urgot, and Clearlove's trying to go in, but he's completely caught out of position. Imp's going to get the turret. The ulti gets spell shielded, I believe, and Clearlove goes down, and it's going from bad to worse for EDG.
Yeah, just one shot by Godby. That's how strong he is already with 2 items, and the push is going to continue.
This game looks awfully familiar, Papa Smithy, except this time it's LGD the one that's winning, and they're doing it about 5 minutes earlier.
It just feels like EDG's comp's missing out on too much, doesn't have wave clear, has decent multiple sources of damage, but honestly, the On The Hunt moves them away from the equalizer, and the only decisive equalizer was the pick onto PYL in the bottom lane. They managed to get some objectives early, but now 6-1 in turrets, even in Dragons, and a Baron in the books. 23 minutes is a bit early to pronounce death for EDG, but it might as well be.
I mean, the gold lead's just ridiculous at this point. 9,000 up for LGD. Godby almost has his last Whisper under 25 minutes as an Orianna. We'd expect that coming through at maybe 30, just over 30 minutes in certain cases in your standard games, but Godby's been so accelerated, and again, his Orianna lost once in this series, but starting to punish EDG for leaving it open again.
Yeah, I mean, it was banned away the once, was actually snapped up every time it was available, and this time it's going to be on the winning side unless EDG can pull off the miracle. They managed a couple of times in previous series, but they weren't 10k gold behind effectively at 20 minutes.
I mean, to remember as well, Pawn picked this matchup as Fizz into the Orianna, and as you said, might be whether it's cockiness, whether it's just a bit of arrogance coming through for Pawn, or simply wanting to play one of his best champions, because Fizz is one of his best champions. It just might be a bit too much bitten off here for EDG, and even Clearlove Sejuani can't seem to save them from this situation.
No, it just gives too much downside. The lane matchup is definitely not Landslide in the advantage of Pawn, and he doesn't have range wave clear. He isn't even a ranged champion. There's a fiercely melee champion in Fizz. So the downside is just so incredibly high. And LG just out-rotated them. The moment they lost a turret and bot, they put Sivir down bottom. And although it looked like a masterstroke to have Urgot against the Athene's Orianna, you might think, okay, the harass is going to be good. In that situation, they just wave cleared happily, and Sivir got farm he would never have been able to do in a 2v2 against Urgot with no turret to go back to. So just with how the waves worked, LGD got the most farm possible onto both Imp and Godvi, and Godvi did the rest.
And again, navigating a lane swap nicely. That's been LGD's forte all playoff long. They're rushing with all their engage. They don't need it there. They'll just zone EDG off a turret. And that second inhibitor looking to fall just as quickly as the first. There's another two-man ult onto the carries from Godvi. They're diving in, doing their best. Pawn goes in. Equalizer down from Koro. If they can save this fight, that'll be ridiculous. But LGD going in. Clearlove dies. Mako dies as well. And it's not enough. EDG are too far behind it. LGD in about 26 minutes are smashing Edward Gaming.
They already have a top lane inhibitor minion wave pushing, and the super minions will do the work. And LGD whitewash EDG effectively. 25-minute beat. There has not been many shorter games for EDG this season.
No, that was one-sided as they get for EDG games. LGD, what a statement to force a game 5. And you can see Imp still not celebrating yet, knows that, he had a good game on Sivir. Played great there at 5-2 and 6. Navigated the lane swap once again with a plum. But not enough there in Deft. I think he could taste victory there, but looks into his computer and realizes with that defeat screen looking back at him, they have to win one more if he wants the title.
Honestly, to end the story that has been the 2015 LPL Spring, there had to be a Game 5. So many even smaller storylines. The battle of the Samsung members. Blue and white on both sides. Now we're going to a Game 5. Will the Orianna finally get the respect ban it seems to deserve? Sejuani isn't the key factor in this final. It's got 3 wins, but certainly not the 4. EDG, they cannot afford to draft this poorly another time. Because honestly, once they started losing, they just didn't have the tools to get back in the game.
I have to ask you, Papa, EDG going to swap over to the blue side for our last game. And if drafting's a big thing, which side do you think they'd rather be on?
That's a really good question. I mean, to be honest, the first pick doesn't necessarily spring out to me as a big advantage unless somehow Cassinan is available. Because Pawn obviously seems very happy to opt into bad laning matchups with Cassinan and get away with them. It certainly wasn't the same story with the Fizz.
No, it wasn't at all. And that was a rough game there for EDG, but LGD in style take it away from him. And we couldn't ask for anything more than this. Don't go too far away because the final game of the LPL Grand Final